My father was a time traveler, and I heard his voice as soon as I was born. Hey, this is the vicious female supporting role in the future, why is it so soft and cute? No, I want to protect her well, my daughter can only be the big heroine. At first he taught me self-esteem and self-love, not to be attached to men, and told me that girls can hold up half the sky. But later it changed. He looked at me with disgust and said that I didn't have the slightest rule of my daughter's family, so he asked me to kneel in the Buddhist hall and copy Buddhist scriptures. And I can't hear his heart anymore. When I was 8 years old, I probably understood what it meant to travel over. My father is from another time and space. In that era, science and technology were developed, men and women were equal, and both men and women could do what they wanted. I think it was an era of great unity. And I also figured out my identity. In the father's cognition, the world we live in is a book. I am the vicious female supporting character in the book, and in the future, I will blacken a man, wag my tail and beg for mercy from him, and offer my family and country, just to let him take a look at me more. But he hates me in addition to hatred. When he married another woman and shared the world, I would go crazy and burn myself to death in the palace. The scene where I jumped off the city wall covered in fire added a touch of color to his wedding ceremony. He and the woman stood on the high wall, looked at my burning corpse, and said, "Evil is rewarded, and it is over." My father told me these plots as stories and told me that women must not indulge in love. It's not worth it for a man, let alone making mistakes for him. If a man needs you to give your family and country to look at you, then this man is definitely not looking at you but your family. Furthermore, every relationship in this world is precious, love is precious, but family, friendship, and family and country are equally important. Truly good feelings are integrated with each other, which can accept your family affection and friendship, and can also respect your family and country. Rongwa, you are the best treasure in the world, the pearl of your parents, you should have greater ambitions, a firmer heart, and never be like that woman, seeking death and life for a man. If you do this, your father will be disappointed. He educated me with a serious face, but he was quietly relieved in his heart. Taught to this point, she shouldn't be on the road of a vicious female supporting role again, right? My daughter doesn't want to bully anyone. When the male and female protagonists come to the capital in the future, the first thing I do is to drive them away, and no one wants to step on my glory. I laughed, holding his arm and asking him to pull me higher. He happily let me hang on his arm, pull me up and down, pull me up and down. I laughed so hard that I screamed, and the joy flew to the clouds, and from the clouds fell into my heart. I don't think I will become a vicious female supporting actress. For my father's sake, I won't either. He is my light, my weakness, and my soul's habitat. For his sake, I am willing to change. But things often don't go as planned. In the 7th year of Hong Yuan, it rained heavily for a month. The father had not entered the harem for a long time, and he was busy dealing with the affairs of the previous dynasty, such as harvesting, floods, famine, and disaster victims, and the world seemed to be unstable all of a sudden. I waited for my father to come down to the court at the corner gate with a small umbrella, and heard him talking to Dukta. There is nothing greater than punishing corruption in governing the country. If you can't put an end to corruption in building embankments, no matter how much money I allocate, it will go into the belly of moths. Du Zigua is particularly hateful, there must be his handwriting behind this matter, and when the imperial envoy comes back, I will never show favoritism. Your Majesty. A clear voice with a crying voice knelt at the feet of his father. It's Du Fei. Your Majesty, if the eldest brother of the concubine really does something wrong, please spare him this time for the sake of him studying with you, Your Majesty, please. Concubine Du is beautiful. She is more beautiful than the Queen Mother and other palace concubines I have seen. My mother once told me that before I was born, Concubine Du had always been the person on the tip of my father's heart, but later, my father listened to the advice of the Queen Mother, and the rain and dew were wet, and Concubine Du was like other concubines, and there was nothing conspicuous. But now, she is here again. The drizzle was silky, making her whole body with fog, and the mist condensed into beads, soaking her hair. Her eyes were flushed, like hibiscus weeping, and her whole body was full of weakness and fragility. She is really beautiful. The father was slightly startled and then said seriously, "You get up. Do you know that because of your brother's corruption, the 10-mile embankment collapsed in a heavy rain, flooding more than a dozen villages under the mountain, killing hundreds of people and thousands of people being homeless?" "Your Majesty!" Concubine Du shouted screamingly, "You forgot, when you were assassinated, it was your brother who carried you back. He sucked out poisonous blood for you, but he was half dead. If he hadn't met a miracle doctor to save his life, he would have been a scoop of lus. You promised him glory and wealth. Have you forgotten? Do you, Eru? Private affairs are private affairs, state affairs are state affairs. His good I remember, his evil I must also be punished. I am the emperor, I cannot distinguish between public and private. Protect suspects. You don't have to mention this matter again." The father flatly refused. I breathed a sigh of relief. I don't like Du Zigua. At every palace banquet, he always smiled mysteriously, as if everyone else was an ant, and only he was sober and self-aware. I always feel that he doesn't even look at his father. "Your Majesty, what about Rua Ueru asking for your life?" Concubine Du cried. The father sighed, "Ueru. Your life is your life, and the lives of those people are also your life. Can you see the lives of your brother and your people, but not the lives of those displaced people? You go back and think about it. Life and death are big things. Don't play with children's play." Concubine Du was stunned, but at the moment when her father was walking, she pounced and hugged her father's feet. The father fell heavily, his head slamming on the bluestone slab. At that moment, I could see clearly that the moment Duke de stretched out his hand to help him, he was pulled by the little eunuch beside him. Concubine Du was quickly controlled by the guards. She was obviously imprisoned, but there was a strange smile on her lips. "Xiao Lang, how I wish you were still the same Xiao Lang as before. Ha 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 ha, Xiao Lang, my Xiao Lang. Come back." This year, I was 10 years old. I held an umbrella and was stunned on the spot. There was chaos there. A little palace maid quickly took the umbrella in my hand, pushed me behind the flower trellis, and then she turned around and ran away. But the corner door opened. A guard quickly caught the little palace maid, and before she could exclaim, she was twisted by the guard. I was full of anger and was suppressed in my throat, and I watched her smash to the ground. Her umbrella fell into the rain, and she turned around leisurely a few times. Her eyes looked at me blankly through the gap in the flower trellis, and then through me. Later, I knew. Her name is Huaji. What a nice name. 3. The father was sick. I was sick too. Concubine Du was imprisoned in the cold palace by her mother, but she did not cry or make trouble. Only one thing is asked every day, "Is your Majesty awake?" My father didn't wake up. But I woke up. I eagerly grabbed my mother's hand and told her what happened that day. The Queen Mother listened quietly. She gently stroked my hair and said calmly, "Before your father wakes up, you will rot in your stomach, and you must not tell anyone about it in the future. Father will wake up. I'm sure." The Queen Mother was silent. She hugged me tightly, her body trembling slightly. "Ronghua, if one day your father wakes up and changes, you will also rot this matter in your stomach. Don't panic, don't be afraid, remember what your father once taught you, don't forget, you promise me, promise me." I answered only a little late, and her voice became fiercely anxious. It wasn't until I nodded lightly that a drop of her tear hit my shoulder. "Ronghua. My glory. Xiao Lang, you must wake up." Later. I thought for a long time before I finally understood that the Queen Mother and Concubine Du were calling their Xiao Lang, but their Xiao Lang was different. For the father finally woke up. The first thing he did when he woke up was to welcome Concubine Du out of the cold palace, move to Fengwan Palace, and promote her to a noble concubine. It was the palace closest to my father's palace, large and gorgeous. In the past, the Queen Mother felt that it was too exquisite and gorgeous, and it was laborious and costly to maintain it, so she left it idle. But the Phoenix Palace has reopened. The huge palace looked like a fairy mansion from a distance. The pool was filled with mist, clusters of lotus flowers bloomed all over the pond, and the white jade platform meandered to the pavilion in the pool, and concubine Du's laughter rippled out from there, startling a pool of water birds. Some people are proud and some people are frustrated. It was the mother and the concubines who were frustrated. The reprimanded is reprimanded, and the grounded is grounded. Those who once had a conflict with concubine Do have all received retribution in the past few days. The Queen Mother received a decree reprimanding her for being immoral, and ordered to hand over the right to take charge of the palace. She handed over the seal expressionlessly, closed the palace gate, and never went out again. The second thing my father did when he woke up was to promote Du Zigua to an official, let him be a Shongshu Ling, participate in military and state affairs, command the 6 ministries, and directly dispose of people and property. His corruption was lightly carried away, and became a thing of the past. On the contrary, some officials who were reused by their fathers were deposed and exiled, and their families were raided and exterminated. For a time, the people in the capital were panicked. I also fell out of favor. I once slipped out of Fengyi Palace to visit my father's Yangxin Hall. When my father saw me for the first time, he frowned. He didn't respond to my call, but looked at me carefully for a long time, his eyes unable to hide his disgust. Vulgar and wild, there is no look of a daughter's family at all, and you will not be allowed to come here without an edict in the future, kneel in the Buddhist hall to copy scriptures, and collect your ambitions. Ambitious. How could I not know? When I knelt in the Buddhist hall and wrote scriptures stroke by stroke, this question kept wandering in my mind. The Heart Sutra consists of 260 characters. The Diamond Sutra consists of 5,000 words. The 6th Patriarch Altar Sutra is 12,000 words. The Sutra of Rangyen is the longest, with 62,156 words. I copied these verses over and over again, and the desires in my heart seemed to fade, but my ambitions grew like spring grass. In the 5th year of copying scriptures, I stopped writing and gradually understood one thing. I do have ambitions. That ambition crawled all over my limbs under the cover of my ruthless appearance. This year the father opened the door, and a little-known student won the championship in one fell swoop, and officially entered the field of vision of many courtiers. His name is Lu Yuzhong. A person who came out of the mud, after ups and downs, finally ushered in the road. The spring breeze is proud, and the horses' hooves are galloping, and in a single day, I can see all the flowers in Chang'an. He galloped to Shirley Wangshuan, where he participated in the poetry meeting, made a name for himself, and won the reputation of Yuzhong Gongzi. This year another orphan girl came to the capital, accidentally rescued the old lady of the Duke's mansion, was made by the old lady, took it under the name of the Duke, and became the righteous daughter of the Duke's mansion. Her name is Song Wanshi. This legendary experience was praised by everyone, and even I heard about it in the harem. Everyone praises the Duke's mansion for being affectionate and righteous, and envies Song Wanshi's deep blessings. No one knows that she is actually a disciple of a generation of medical saints, and in the future, she will rely on her superb medical skills to complement Lu Yuzhong and shine in the capital. The male and female protagonists appear. The plot that belongs to me seems to have begun. This year, I was 15 years old, and it was time to hold a wedding. But the person sitting on the throne waiting for me to salute was not my mother, but concubine Du. With the favor of her father, she became even more charming, and her every move exuded luxurious glory. She was like a squeamish cat, yawning lazily. Her niece Du Shuefu is now 28 years old, often enters the palace to accompany her, and is her favorite junior. Du Shuefu smiled and said to me, "The queen is not feeling well, the noble concubine will accept the princess's salute on behalf of the queen. Princess, please salute." No way. The queen mother was rare to rejoice today. She put on the queen's dress early in the morning, waiting for the ceremony to start, and see that I was blessed by everyone. She touched my hair this morning, and said that my son was old and looked like his father. She and I both know that the father she is talking about is the father who once loved me, and held me in the palm of his hand. How could she suddenly feel unwell? It was concubine Du who detained her mother. She wanted everyone to see clearly who was the master of the harem. Even if I am a concubine princess, I will be slave to her. Concubine Du looked proud, with a shallow smile on her lips, and her eyes were full of disdain. There were many noblewomen on both sides, and although they were surprised, they lowered their eyes and lowered their heads, saying nothing. And my father just looked at me with a fixed expression, his eyebrows filled with dissatisfaction. But he didn't have time to say anything, and there was a riot in the crowd, and countless assassins suddenly rushed out and hit his father. When an assassin was about to stab his father, I grabbed Du Shuefu, who was fleeing in panic, and pushed her in front of my father. She screamed, blocked a knife for her father, and fell into his arms. And the father pushed her away, grabbed concubine Du, and shouted for escort. I immediately leaned towards the heroine Song Wanshi, who seemed to be embarrassed to dodge in the crowd, but was actually very disciplined, and successfully escaped the assassination with her. Song Wanshi looked at me in astonishment, moved her lips but didn't say anything. The assassin was quickly taken down. Lu Yuzhong alone protected the safety of the emperor with his superb martial arts. Soon, everything calmed down. The father was furious and investigated the origin of the assassins, but was shocked to find that those assassins were refugees, who had been forced to ruin their families by Du Zigua, and they spontaneously gathered together to fall into the grass and become bandits, practicing martial arts and practicing swordsmanship, just to kill the emperor and avenge their families. The knife that his father once blocked for Du Zigua has now fallen on him. He was extremely shocked and quarreled with concubine Du. The high-ranking emperor seemed to realize for the first time that his favored concubine and her people had done many evil things, and these evil things more or less shook his country. The Fenghuan Palace, which was once full of laughter, came out of concubine Du's cry. And I was in the side hall to see the imperial physician treating Du Shuefu. The imperial doctors were helpless. Du Shuefu's knife was wounded in the heart, and they were not sure, so they almost sentenced Du Shuefu to death. Du Shuefu wants to live. With tears in her eyes, she stared intently at the door of the palace. She was waiting for concubine Du to come to her rescue. I stepped forward and whispered in her ear, "The noble concubine is arguing with her father, and she may not be able to take care of you for a while. It's a pity, you were not stabbed hard, but your father fell on you, and the knife edge was deeper, compared with the noble concubine, you are nothing, and the father is the true love for the noble concubine." Du Shuefu's eyes were full of hatred. It's you who pushed me, if it weren't for you, how could I be like this? I want my uncle to kill you, let my father kill you. She was so stupid. I like it. I chuckled, do you know that as long as I push this knife gently, you will die without a place to be buried, kill me. You have been waiting for 80 years in the hall of hell, and you may be able to wait for me. She looked frightened, you dare. I smiled and put my hand on the knife. She burst into tears. Please don't. Ah. I quickly pulled out the knife, and at the moment I drew the knife, Song Wanshi came over and quickly pressed, stopped the bleeding, and sutured the wound. Her movements are methodical, and there is a sense of unhurried beauty between her actions. I was in a trance for a moment. This is the heroine. It's really different from me. 5 in the story that the time traveler's father once told me, I, the vicious female partner, was an unlucky bastard. My wedding banquet is just a stage, although it brings together countless nobles, but it is just to let the male and female protagonist shine. The assassin made a big fuss and the banquet, and I was inadvertently pushed down by the assassin to block a knife for my father, and it was this knife that gave me a friendship with the indifferent father, paving the way for me to gain the favor of my father in the future and be a cow and a horse for the male protagonist. And the male protagonist will bravely save his father, let his father see that he is all round in civil and military affairs, and lay the foundation for future command. I will fall in love with him at first sight because of his life-saving grace, and since then I have fallen, sincerely again and again, ruthlessly cleared obstacles for him again, and been taught by him again and again in the name of morality. The heroine showed her medical skills and gave me a life-saving grace, and I was ungrateful, suppressing her and framing her again and again because she was close to the male protagonist, and was slapped in the face, counterattacked and poisoned again and again. After mastering these plots, I also thought about whether to go through the plot and block my father. But I thought about it again, and I still didn't want to do it. The father who loved me taught me in every possible way, hoping that I would avoid the plot and hope that I would be self-reliant and self-loving. Therefore, I will never hurt my body with bitter meat. With a good body, I can plan and let those assassins enter the palace quietly and assassinate early. Du Shifu, a fool, is the best pawn. She appeared for concubine Du, and she had to be prepared to be counterattacked by me. She blocked a knife for her father, and she was kind to her father, and I really wanted to see the future of a family of two favored concubines. If concubine Du knew that she would one day compete with her niece for favor, her expression would be very exciting. And Du Zigua, I really want to see who he will choose to support between his sister and daughter. Song Wanshi bandaged the wound and walked out. She looked at me with a calm expression, with an indifference that was used to seeing life and death. I took a box from my sleeve and handed it to her. This is a reward for Miss Song, I hope you like it. Song Wanshi opened it hesitantly and took a look, then quickly closed the box. Suspicion flashed in her eyes, and she declined. This thing is too precious, and my daughter does not dare to ask for it. I said lightly, take it, this thing has been left in the palace for many years, no one in the Imperial Hospital can use it, and giving it to Miss Song can make the most of it, and it will not be humiliated. In the box is a century-old crane grass, which is a poisonous grass and a fairy grass. The imperial doctors were conservative, and did not dare to use this medicine easily. And Song Wanshi came all the way to the capital for this herb. Her medical master discovered the secrets in the palace back then, faked his death, and escaped from the palace, injured his body, and lived without a doctor. Song Wanshi was filial and developed a prescription, but this crane grass was missing. In the plot, she and Lu Yuzhong cooperated with each other, went through countless hardships, and made countless sacrifices to get the crane grass and hurriedly brought it back, but heard the news that the master was dead. All her efforts were in vain, and that was her most difficult moment. Lu Yuzhong accompanied her. The relationship between the two increased rapidly, and they became companions who shared life and death. Of course, I can't see such a miserable thing. So I prepared this herb early in the morning. My father hoped that I would have a smooth life, and now, Lu Yuzhong and Song Wanshi and I are meeting for the first time. We do not have a deep hatred, and I am willing to share this kindness with her. Song Wanshi hesitated for a moment, took the crane grass, and solemnly promised me. This thing is indeed of great use to Wanshi. Thank you, princess, for giving me medicine. If the princess needs it in the future, Wanshi will definitely try her best to help the princess once. That's great. I want you to stay with me in the palace for a year. Is the girl willing? I looked at her with a smile on my face, my eyes full of anticipation. Song Wanshi took a breath and said for a long time, okay. She hurriedly left the palace. That night, he left the duke's mansion and went to his hometown. I walked to the pool of the imperial garden, where I bumped into Lu Yuzhong. Lu Yuzhong was confronting Du Zigua. Du Zigua probably heard that the assassin was related to him. He hurried over and broke into the palace without permission, probably wanting to clarify himself in front of his father. Lu Yuzhong is the commander of the guards just appointed by his father, so he naturally wants to prevent such transgressions. Du Zigua was used to being arrogant. How could he take a small new champion in his eyes, and immediately ordered someone to detain Lu Yuzhong. Lu Yuzhong was escorted to kneel on the ground, his face full of slaughter, and his eyes were humiliated. At this moment, I stepped forward. 6. My idea is actually very simple. In the plot, because Lu Yuzhong has a life-saving grace to me, I have been like a loyal dog to him since then. I really want to see what he will do to me if I save Lu Yuzhong. At the moment when the sword was tense, I stepped forward and said calmly, Master Du, congratulations. Du Zigua's lips showed a mocking smile. Oh, what's so happy? He is old. It's not the one I saw at the banquet before. Everyone was drunk, and I was the only one who woke up. His sideburns were white, the corners of his eyes were wrinkled, and the vertical lines in the middle of his eyebrows added a bit of fierceness. Power is charming, and people should be tired all day long. I didn't change my face and said with a smile, Miss Du sacrificed herself to block her father's knife and saved her father's life, and it is all thanks to Miss Du that my father is safe and sound, but... But what? Miss Du has a knife in her heart, although the imperial doctor tried her best to save her, but after all, it will damage the root, and there will be scars on her body in the future, and Miss Du's marriage may be affected. Du Zigua's expression was awe-inspiring, and he quickly relaxed again. He probably thought that Du Shuefu blocked the knife for his father, so his assassination of his father was naturally nonsense. The old minister has his own plan, so don't bother the princess. I will take Lord Du there, and my father is in Fenghuan Palace. Du Zigua is very satisfied with my appearance. He glanced at Lu Yuzhong and said silently, Lu Longjuan is the new champion, but there are dozens of new champions I have seen, guess where are those people now? He laughed wildly and strode away. I smiled faintly at Lu Yuzhong and turned around. Since the founding of Daning, there have been more than 50 scientific examinations, and more than 50 champions have been born. But most of those people did not go far in the court. Some people were demoted, some were exiled, some died, some became mediocre ministers who only wanted to live, and some became Du Zigua's henchmen. Lu Yuzhong is different from them. In the plot, he is the one who goes the farthest. He stepped on my bones, overthrew an imperial dynasty, and stepped on his own heyday. Now, I will never allow this to happen. I walked far away and looked back, only to find that Lu Yuzhong was also staring at me. His eyes were deep, like a cold pool. 7 Du Zigua visited his father, and was scolded by his father for the word, get out. He obediently stepped back, and was called in by his father with a get back. The two don't know what they said. After Du Zigua came out, his eyes were slightly red, and he kept wiping his eyes with his sleeves, and his pure and good appearance seemed to have returned to the youth of that time. This scene of the monarch and his ministers meeting happily made me very tired. His father's love for the Du family is as good as ever, even if the Du family has become dictatorial to the point of anger between men and God, he will not change his original intention. There was a period of dictatorship in our dynasty, and it took 10 years for the rebellion of foreign relatives to be quelled. In order to prevent this from happening again, later queens were all chosen from civilian homes. My mother was the daughter of a 9th-rank official, and my mother was elected queen, and my grandfather was only promoted to a 5th-rank official. Concubine Du is different. She came from the Du family of Yenling, who had a family of 3 dukes when the Du family was glorious, and her family power was intertwined. According to the rules, not only can she not be a queen, but she can't even enter the palace. But it just so happened that she and her father fell in love with each other, and they went through life and death. In order to enter the palace, she drank a bowl of absolute medicine in exchange for the opportunity for the Queen Mother to allow her to enter the palace. Because of this incident, the father and the Empress Dowager were severed from each other, and they never saw each other again. When the Empress Dowager died, she faced the door, and was eagerly waiting to see her father for the last time. However, she did not wait. The father stood at the door and never stepped in. When the Empress Dowager was buried, there was a sound of weeping in Sinang Palace. The father was also crying, but he was hiding in concubine Du's arms and crying about his sadness, and the hurdle that he couldn't overcome in his heart. I think this is probably what the father of the Traverser said about the love brain. In the plot, my father's love brain and I are in the same vein. But now watching all this, I just feel cold and panicked. The father would not be unaware of the horror of the dictatorship of the relatives. During the Han dynasty, the Lu family's relatives were in power, and more than half of the descendants of the Lu family were slaughtered. After the death of Empress Lu, the Lu clan killed the entire Lu clan, and the descendants of the Lu clan, who were close to the Lu clan, were slaughtered again. The father and prince did not have many heirs, only 1 son and 1 daughter. Among them, the eldest is me. Compared with the powerful Du, we are insignificant. I think in the eyes of my father, our 2 children are insignificant compared to his great and loyal love. When Du completely overshadows his father, the only thing waiting for us is a dead end, and the father can innocently believe in his love, but I can't believe in Du. 8 Du Zigua turned around and went around the side hall. Du Shuefu had woken up and she cried, "It was Xiao Ronghua who pushed me. If it weren't for her, how could I be stabbed like this?" And she threatened me, saying that she would kill me. Du Zigua covered her mouth. "Remember, for me, you voluntarily blocked the knife for His Majesty, and no one has ever pushed you, do you understand?" Du Shuefu still wanted to talk. I walked in and explained softly to Du Zigua. "Master Du, please forgive me, the situation was urgent at that time, the imperial physician was helpless, the imperial concubine was discussing the assassination with her father, Miss Du lost consciousness. I could only provoke her with words, so that she had the will to survive, so that she could take this opportunity to draw her sword. As for the pushing, I may have run into Miss Du in a panic, but it was indeed not intentional." Du Shuefu said excitedly, "You lied, you did it on purpose." Hiss. She was so excited that the wound ruptured. I sighed and said slowly, "Miss Du, if I hadn't happened to bring Miss Song over at that time, your life would probably have been gone. If I really wanted to harm you, I wouldn't have saved you. You can deny my life-saving grace, but you shouldn't reverse black and white." I turned and left. It doesn't matter whether Du Zigua believes it or not. I just want him to know that when his precious daughter was seriously injured, his sister had no time to care about his daughter's life and death. I would love to know how he would choose between his sister and his daughter. Du Shifu lived in the palace. Concubine Du dispatched 6 palace maids to serve Du Shuefu personally. One of the palace maids named Huang quickly stood out. She treats Du Shuefu like her own master, careful and thoughtful during the day, and does not take off her clothes at night. When Du Shuefu got better, she lost a lot of weight. Du Shuefu once asked her why she was so loyal. Huang said quietly, "You are the master of the slave, and the slave is very righteous to the master." Du Shuefu smiled proudly, "You are a good dog." She was self-satisfied with Huang, and in the harem as if it were her own home. Her temper was more arrogant than Concubine Du, and she was beaten by Concubine Du several times before she gave up. Concubine Du has planned to send her out of the palace after the palace banquet to celebrate Du Shuefu's recovery. To this end, she specially asked her father for a will to make Du Shuefu the princess. Everything is ready, just waiting for the palace banquet. On that day, the palace, which had been silent for a long time, seemed to wake up, with lights everywhere and silver lights flashing. Du Shuefu is dressed in pink clothes, the snake bun on her head is delicate and moving, and the flower ornaments of the phoenix Yufei in the center of her eyebrows are exquisite and gorgeous, holding a small fan, revealing the brightness and charm unique to this age. The father nodded with a smile and couldn't help but praise. The snow skin and flowers are uneven, and she is worthy of being the daughter of the Du family. Concubine Du smiled and smiled, her face faded. Among them, there was a person named Taizhen, with snow-white skin and a flowery appearance. This sentence comes from Bai Jui's Song of Everlasting Hatred, written by Yang Guifei. Concubine Yang was once the princess of Shou, and the father of Emperor Ming of Tang took her son's wife, and at first raised her in the Taoist temple, and later included her in the palace to become a favored concubine. And the world says that Yang Guifei looks like concubine Wu Hui, the late favorite concubine of Emperor Tang Ming, and what is even more ironic is that King Shou is the son of concubine Wu Hui. I don't know if Concubine Du thought of this, but she was obviously unhappy. She is nearly 40 years old, and she is eating beauty soup every day, but the years are ruthless, and the day of beauty twilight will eventually come, and the delicate Du Shuefu was once the pistachio of her boring court years, but this fruit was too delicious and was an eyesore. She smiled lightly. Yes, Xiao Lang remembers that year. The father didn't even notice it, and hugged Concubine Du and laughed. That's right, you and I were like this back then, but now you and I are old. Concubine Du's hand was slightly clenched, and the will to give Du Shuefu the princess was not sent, but only gave Du Shuefu some jewelry rewards. Du Shuefu was obviously disappointed, but she could only grit her teeth, and thank the Lord for her grace, drinking the mull wine cup by cup. That night, my father was locked out of the door by Concubine Du and apologized for a long time. He said that he knew he was wrong, and that he shouldn't have said that old sentence. He said that his heart and liver baby are always young, and he is the one who is old, and he is a big bastard. Concubine Du ignored it. The father lingered outside the door for a long time, drinking to relieve his boredom. However, when he woke up, he found that the person next to his pillow turned out to be Duzuf. The first rays of sunlight in the morning shone down, and two screams rang out in the huge palace. One is my father's and the other is Dushev's. And concubine Du stood at the door with a pale face. She simply slapped each of them. Dushuefu was sent out of the palace by a sedan chair, and his father went to the court with a dazed expression. Concubine Du thoroughly investigated the Fengwan palace and found out that it was the drunken father who pulled the drunk Dushuefu to talk, and the two finally helped each other back to the sleeping quarters, and they went to report, but Concubine Du's palace door could not be knocked open. On that day, Concubine Du smashed the gorgeous Fengwan palace, crying and laughing like crazy. She repeatedly recited, "The scholar's indulgence can still be said, the woman's indulgence cannot be said, the woman's indulgence cannot be said, ha 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 ha. Xiao Lang, what if I look forward to you coming back, what can I do? However, this is not the worst. The worst is yet to come." The father was in a trance in the court. The courtiers took the opportunity to let their father establish a crown prince. Because Concubine Du could not have children, the only one with a son in the harem was Litsiren, and when Litsiren was pregnant, the soul in his father's body was the father of my time traveler. Now he is not only indifferent to that child, but also hates it. In his heart, it was a wild seed born of another man. Letting him make a wild species the prince is more uncomfortable than killing him. But by the way, he only has this one son. The father was furious and beat several ministers. After the next dynasty, facing the palace that had been smashed to the ground, Concubine Du knelt on the ground, in a trance, as if she had lost her mind. At that moment my father was distressed. With tears in his eyes, he hugged Concubine Du and knelt down in the mess on the ground, solemnly making a promise. "I can't give you the position of queen. I will lose you after all. I promise you that the position of queen mother must be yours." He immediately ordered Litsiren to die, and adopt his 5-year-old son to Concubine Du. The imperial decree arrived at Litsiren's palace. Litsiren tried his best to break free from his mother who gave him death, ran to his mother's harem and kowtowed, shouting help. Blood quickly flowed down her forehead. She didn't seem to know the pain, and every time she knocked extremely hard. The door of Fingi Palace opened. The queen mother stood at the door dignified and luxurious, dressed in court clothes. She ordered Litsiren to be brought into Fingi Palace to protect her, and she took the palace maid and a group of people to Fengwan Palace. The guards stopped her. She domineeringly pushed the person away and broke in. The father and Concubine Du were in love and feeding each other, and the intrusion of the queen mother interrupted this warm moment. The father shouted angrily, "Who allowed you to break into this room, and let me out?" The queen mother held a will in her hand and said indifferently, "The Empress Dowager gave the decree so that the concubine had to come, and His Majesty cannot recognize the mother, but as a daughter-in-law, the concubine does not dare to be unfilial. Empress Dowager is a thorn in the heart of my father. He failed to see the queen mother for the last time, and he couldn't say anything about filial piety. His face was red, his eyes were full of fire, but he couldn't say a word after all. His mother ignored him, but looked at Concubine Du. The child is innocent, you rob him and kill his mother, he will hate you and blame you when he grows up. If he doesn't hate you, don't blame you, and don't seek justice for his mother, he is a ruthless and unrighteous white-eyed wolf, and naturally he will not honor you as an adoptive mother in the future. Even if you become the queen mother in the future, the former queen mother will be your future. The fate of the queen mother is obvious to all. Her father fell out with her for Concubine Du, and since then she has never seen her again, and her eyes were wide open before she died, which is death. I have never seen the queen mother, but I have heard the story of the queen mother. The queen mother said that from Her Majesty's point of view, the queen mother beat the mandarin ducks, was ruthless with an iron face, and was a domineering person. But in her position, the queen mother cannot only consider Her Majesty's preferences, she has to consider the stability of the country and the peace of the country and the people. She risked her own son not recognizing herself, and she also wanted to cut off the Du family's path to relatives. Sacrifice the small self and achieve the big self. He is a person of true wisdom. The Queen Mother said that it is impossible for a person to do something practical, and if he chooses a group of people, he will offend another group of people, and no one will be spared. Just look at whether this matter will be successful or faulty in the future. The Queen Mother did not regret it, and the mother did not regret it either. Concubine Du was angry. Zhonghuan, I have been favored in the palace for many years, but have I killed your mother and daughter? If I can't have children, am I rare in other people's children? Today I am going to make a decision on this child. Even if he dies, he is still my son, and his filial piety is not uncommon in this palace. As long as this palace obeys me, it will prosper, and those who oppose me will die. She went crazy. The Queen Mother looked at her father and said coldly, Your Majesty made the Queen Mother hate Jiuquan back then, and now you want to separate another pair of mother and son forever? If your Majesty wants to kill Li Tsiren, then the concubine will desperately snatch the child and raise it in my name. If your Majesty spends Li Tsiren from dying, the concubine will voluntarily lead the palace concubines into the Shanglin monastery to pray for the country, and in this life, I will not enter the palace gate again, and fulfill the good story of your Majesty and the concubine for a lifetime. She held high the decree and knelt down. At that moment the father was shocked. I don't know what he thought. He stared at his mother for a long time, and squeezed out a few words from between his teeth. I have permission, and you are limited to leave the palace within 3 days. Later, I thought about it for a long time, and probably figured out that he might have seen the shadow of the Queen Mother in the Queen Mother. He is afraid of his mother. Because the Queen Mother is another moral existence that he cannot defeat. 3 days, time is tight. But the concubines in the palace seem to be pardoned. Perhaps, compared with the palace that is so cold that it can die at any time, Shanglinen is indeed a good place. The Queen Mother quickly packed her things, and the only thing she couldn't let go of was me. That night, she and I knelt down in the small Buddha hall in the palace, and the Queen Mother stared at the Buddha statue in a daze. The Buddha statue is cold, ignorant, but it is the only comfort for the souls of countless palace people. Do you remember that father? He was a good person back then. He asked his mother if she wanted to leave the palace, and she was tempted. The court was lonely, and even a few fruits on the trees could be used for entertainment. But my mother looked at him and couldn't say it. It was easy for my mother to leave the palace, but he had to take a great risk to cover up his mother's traces. He had just come and took over a mess, and my mother couldn't hold him back. My mother said she didn't think about what she wanted. He asked her to think about it and tell him. And this thought was thought for many years, and before she could tell him what was in her heart, she left, and in the blink of an eye, things were different. Now I can finally leave the palace, but Ronghua, what should you do? You will encounter countless difficulties in the future, and you are helpless. What should you do? She held my hand, sadness came from it, and her throat choked. I whispered in her ear, Mother, I always remember what my father said, you and the lady can go with confidence, daughter can rely on anyone, daughter can rely on herself. When you leave, I can show my strength. Only then can God block and kill God, and Buddha can block and kill Buddha. 9 On the 3rd day, all the ladies of the palace came to say goodbye to me, and I took many small things. Concubine Lin's sachet, Lu Zhaoyi's painting, He Changzai's collection of books, Concubine Zhang's small incense screen. And so on, there is a table full of them. When parting, Li Tsiren was framed, her legs were so weak that she couldn't walk, and she looked in the direction of Fengwan Palace with tears streaming down her face. Her son, my second brother Xiao Xiao, has been sent to Fengwan Palace, and at this moment of parting, we will not be able to see each other again. She was carried into the carriage and let out an extremely suppressed cry. I sent them to the palace gate. The Queen Mother said to me softly, There is a God 3 feet above your head, and your father will bless you. I nodded. She lowered the curtain decisively. The carriage slowly drove away from the palace, leaving me alone. Evening. In the Phoenix Palace, Xiao Xiao cried bitterly. I asked for an audience with a palace lamp, but concubine Du refused. I handed over a brocade little tiger that Xiao Xiao often played with to the palace maid, and asked her to pass it on to Xiao Xiao. The palace maid went in, came out quickly, and threw the little tiger into the slag bucket. What a broken thing, it's worth it when I send it off, and I was scolded for nothing. The palace maid threw things in quickly, and didn't find me standing outside the palace wall. The palace maid next to me hurriedly picked the little tiger out of the slag bucket, and wiped it with a handkerchief, and her eyes turned red with anger. I said lightly, "Why are you crying? This is just the beginning." But not only do I not want to cry. I was still a little excited. Maybe I was born to be a vicious female supporting material, and the more this happened, the more aggressive blood in my bones boiled. 10 in the palace. Xiao Xiao and concubine Du fought wits and courage. Xiao Xiao was only 5 years old, he saw many people in the palace, and he didn't recognize life. As long as he was patient and coaxed, he would naturally recognize concubine Du, but concubine Du has an arrogant temperament, and she herself needs her father to coax her all the time, and she has no extra patience to give to Xiao Xiao. For 3 days, Xiao Xiao cried hoarsely. Immediately afterwards he fell ill. Concubine Du was also haggard, and she had another dispute with her father under her emotion. A child made Feng Palace no longer have the laughter and joy it had before. I asked a few imperial physicians and learned that Xiao Xiao was not eating well, and had some gastrointestinal discomfort, and then he had heart disease, which others couldn't help, just to see if concubine Du could really be attentive. If she can really take care of Xiao Xiao through this level, the two will establish a mother-son relationship in the future. Unfortunately, I was wrong again. Concubine Du left Feng Palace, leaving only a group of maids and grandmothers to take care of Xiao Xiao. She herself lived in her father's palace, and became the first concubine to sleep with the emperor since the founding of our dynasty. This is an honor and a trampling on the rules. Because of the huge harem, only the queen was qualified to sleep with the emperor, and the concubine only had the share of sleeping. The censor heard the rumors, and the fold of impeaching concubine Du surged onto his father's table like snowflakes. Those folds, either persuading elegance or scolding bluntly, are all saying that the father is immoral, forcing the queen to leave the palace to pray for blessings, leaving the harem without a master, and the demon concubine is rampant, reminding the father not to forget the disaster of King Daji of Shang. Concubine Du was so angry that she smashed a lot of things. After losing her temper, she looked at herself sadly. Demon concubine, I want to be a demon concubine, but is this palace still qualified to be a demon concubine now? The palace maid beside her had red eyes. Mother, you are the most beautiful and best in the heart of the slaves, you treat your majesty sincerely. If you hadn't been decisive, your majesty's body is still occupied by monsters. Where is it your turn to speak? Slaves, look, they just can't see you. Your majesty used to have only you in his heart. Why don't they impeach them? They have to impeach them now. They are all full and have nothing to do. Concubine Du woke up. Yes, why do you have to impeach now? With her brother outside the palace, how dare those ministers impeach her? Unless something happens to the Du family. She immediately ordered someone to go to Du's house to check, and found out that Du Shuefu was pregnant. And his brother Du Zigua is now kneeling in the imperial study, shedding tears to the emperor. Concubine Du immediately killed her, and heard Du Zigua crying. Your Majesty, you give a correct word, that is the heir to the emperor, the servant does not dare not fail to report, let alone dispose of it at will, everything is up to your Majesty, you let Shuefu give birth to her, you let her die, the minister is the same to thank the Lord for his grace, I only ask your Majesty to make it clear. The father hesitated, couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time, and revealed his meaning hesitantly. You and I are brothers, naturally I won't let her die, but what should you do? She won't agree. Du Zigua cried even more sadly. Hey, although my sister is pampered, she has always loved Shuefu the most, and there is no reason to watch Shuefu die. That's okay. Xiaocheng, you dare. Concubine Du rushed in, and slapped her father in the face. Du Zigua was shocked. The surrounding eunuchs and palace maids knelt down in unison, bowing their heads, and not daring to breathe. He looked at concubine Du's distorted face with jealousy, grabbed her hand coldly, and said hatefully, Du Qing is right, you are just spoiled, come on," grounding the concubine in Fenghuan Palace, "and you are not allowed to go out without an edict." Concubine Du couldn't believe it, the corners of her eyes were red, and she blurted out in a hurry. "Your Majesty doesn't have to lock me in the cold palace, just kick me out of the palace, and never see each other again in life and death, then it will be as you wish." "Then it will be as you wish." Concubine Du never dreamed that one day she would be carried out of the palace by a sedan chair. In fact, as long as she pulled her face down, begged for mercy, and gave her father a step down, her father would hug her in his arms and coax her. Unfortunately, she is used to being proud and self-esteem. After all, in her eyes, the rest of the people in this entire palace have no self-esteem. She also forgot that there was no Gao Lishur by her father's side, and she would follow Emperor Tangming's wishes and obediently remind him that the concubine lacked food and clothing outside the palace, so that Emperor Tangming couldn't wait to take concubine Yang back to the palace the next day. There was only one Duke De by his father's side. On the day he sent concubine Du back to the palace, he used the same sedan chair to take Du Shuefu into the palace. Concubine Du's eyes widened and she suffocated herself in one breath. And no one told his father about all this. 11 After Du Shuefu entered the palace, I took Xiao Xiao to my palace. Duke De personally sent him over. I asked him for a cup of tea, and he took it with a smile, and took a sip of it with a rare relaxation. The last time I drank tea at the princess's place was several years ago. 5 years. At that time, the father of the traverser was still there, and he would sit with her in the next dynasty. I had just learned the tea ceremony, washed my hands carefully and cooked tea, poured a cup for them, and handed a cup to Duke De by the way. Duke De always smiled and narrowed his eyes. The old slave also followed His Majesty to enjoy the blessings. How happy I was then. Now I have superb tea skills, but the tea drinkers are no longer there. Duke De looked at the pale winter sky, and there was a little crystal shimmer in the corners of his eyes. He said, "The old slave regrets it, that day, if I had held His Majesty steadily, it would have been all my fault." He choked up and closed his eyes sadly. I gently patted him on the back and whispered, "You're right, you shouldn't help me, if you do, you're not there." I thought of the little girl named Huaji. She is still a little girl, but she is so clever, intelligent and decisive. If she hadn't sacrificed herself to save me, I wouldn't be here. Since concubine Du dared to do this, she made full arrangements. Later, I reviewed the events of the day countless times before I understood. The guards that day were carefully selected. They seemed to have captured concubine Du, but in fact, their eyes were always staring at my father. If my father hadn't fainted at that time, I believe someone would have come to my father. 12 Du Shuefu entered the palace as he wished. She was restrained at first, but later found that she was the only concubine in the entire palace, so she became arrogant again, extravagant and wasteful, luxurious and corrupt, even more luxurious than concubine Du. The palace maids and eunuchs served her alone, which was busier than the concubines in the entire palace. When the palace maid hurriedly told me that she was teaching Xiao Xiao a lesson in the imperial garden, I couldn't restrain the murderous intent in my heart. Fools are sometimes quite annoying. I rushed to the imperial garden. Du Shuefu was holding her stomach and kicked Xiao Xiao. "In the future, I will walk and look a little. I don't know what it means. If you break me, you won't even have 9 lives to compensate." I rushed over and pulled Xiao Xiao over. Du Shuefu's kick failed, screaming and almost falling to the ground, but fortunately, Huang beside her was able to hold Du Shuefu steadily, but she herself was crushed by the fat Du Shuefu and blushed. My stomach is fine, don't panic." Huang hurriedly comforted her. I sneered, slapped him, and with a pop, he tilted Du Shuefu's head. "What kind of lady is she? The only lady in this palace is concubine Du, Miss Du. During the time you entered the palace, did your father give you any title? Who gave you the courage to teach the prince? You dare to hit me, I will fight with you." Du Shuefu has never suffered such a grievance, and she rushes up to fight me desperately. Huang hugged her tightly. "Miss, your stomach is important, don't be fooled." Du Shuefu seemed to wake up. She moved away from me a little further away, gritting her teeth. Good means, you want to murder the heir. I almost fell for you. I will definitely tell your majesty. I shook my head, my face full of regret, and looked at her with a smile. So what, can you see your father? Besides, even if you lose this fetus, someone will thank me. Compared to that person, you are worthless in your father's heart. You. Du Shuefu blushed angrily. I sneered, took Xiao Xiao's little hand and turned to leave. Behind her, Huang was advising Du Shuefu. Miss, be careful of your stomach, it's useless to be angry, let's think of an idea quickly, and let His Majesty give you a title. You have to hurry up, in case concubine Du comes back. Cheap maid, do I need you to teach me? She slapped Huang. Huang, shut up. In the evening, I heard that she condescendingly apologized to Huang while Huang was serving her to wash her feet. At that time, I slapped you in a hurry. You can hold this pearl hairpin. A pearl hairpin offset the slap, and the dignity of Huang being knocked out. Sometimes I think that the era my father once said was a dream or a fairyland. Will everyone really be equal? Is it really illegal to hit someone? I can't understand. But I thought about it again and again. If the system of that era is introduced to the present, I am afraid that the Shao dynasty will be the first to disappear, and only the word equality is against all the nobles, and the price to pay is extremely heavy. Du Zigui sent 2 people into the palace the next day to accompany Du Shuefu, and warned her that he could only hold Du Guifei for another month at most. If Du Shuefu could not find a way to win her father's heart this month, then when she gave birth to a child, her death date would come. Du Shuefu panicked, she ignored the pregnancy, and asked Huang to dress her up in a flashy way, waiting for her father at the entrance of the harem. On that day, Duke De led his father there and said with a smile, "The lady used to wait here for His Majesty to come to court," and the lady was really in love with His Majesty. The father was full of sentimentality, and saw a woman, wearing concubine Du's favorite rouge-colored clothes, combing a gorgeous crested head, with a gold hairpin in her temples, particularly smart, and her profile looked like concubine Du when she was young. The woman smiled slightly, lowered her eyebrows, and said softly, "My daughter has seen your majesty." The father shook his head. That night, the lights in the side hall of Fengwan Palace were on for a long time. After dawn, there was an additional concubine in the palace, called Shuefei. Du Shuefu was not very satisfied with this title, because she had a snow character in her name, and she hoped to have another word to show His Majesty's favor to her. Unfortunately, no. After dawn, the medicine in his father's body had been dissipated, and his mind came back, and he rarely thought of concubine Du, for fear that one day concubine Du would find trouble with him, so she crossed out all the titles sent by Guanglu Temple, and only casually ordered, "Just call me concubine Shui." 13 I couldn't help but laugh when I heard this, and added a cup of tea to Song Wanshi, who was returning from the dust on the opposite side. Song Wanshi was a little restrained. She didn't know why I wanted the palace maids to tell these palace privacy in front of her. I didn't say much and asked her what happened after she got home. She was a little happy, her face was relaxed, and she said calmly, "Thank you, Princess, for giving me medicine and saving my father's life." Father. He is my master, and in my heart, he is like my father. I said, "Oh," and laughed. It should be like this, the medicine finally has value. Song Wanshi was silent. If the princess needs anything to do, please tell me, as long as it does not violate conscience and morality, the courtesan will definitely go all out. I laughed. I like her. She should be so grieving. If I were really the poor princess in the plot who was begging for a living under concubine Du, would I like her when I met Song Wanshi, who was so bright and amazing? I think I will envy her and envy her. Because, the dark and inferior self-esteem, I am not so magnanimous and elegant at all, and I can be with the light. I might really become that vicious female supporting character who hates dogs. Countless days of copying Buddhist scriptures, I wondered why I would repay Lu Yuzhong, who had the grace of saving my life, but would repay Song Wanshi, who also had the grace of saving my life, and wish I could eat his flesh raw. I think this is probably the power of the environment. It is the influence of the ubiquitous patriarchal idea mentioned by the father of the Traverser. It will make you unconsciously respect men, take it as your responsibility to please men, let women soften their bodies, charm their voices, seek men's pity, and have honor, status and power through men. Even if I am a princess, I still can't escape such a fate. Because everyone around me was pleasing my father, there was no reason why I could not be affected. Under the influence of this environment, any woman of the same age has become a competitor. Her excellence will attract the attention of a few elite men, so suppressing her has become a common task for many women. In the plot, I am the vicious female supporting 1, and the vicious female supporting 2, 3, and 4. We create trouble, and Liu Yuzhang solves the trouble, wins the hearts of the beauties, and hugs the beauties. And is this love real? The story ends in the wedding of the emperor and the queen sharing the world, but I always think it's a joke. Just like concubine do seem to have won the queen mother and asked her father to take her into the palace, but she still fought in the palace. There is the disgust of the empress dowager, there is the suppression of the queen mother, and there are concubines who have been included in the harem by their father for various reasons. Even if they are not favored, they are after all proof that the father is not firm again and again. On the contrary, the father of my time traveler, he was able to firmly fight back the voices that made him draft a concubine again and again. He has been in power for 10 years, and there is not a single new concubine in the palace. Those 10 years were the decades when the harem was truly peaceful and peaceful. It can be seen that the cause of all evil lies with the father. I looked at Song Wanshi and nodded unpretentiously. I do ask you to help me make a few medicines, I need to carry them with me, this is not against conscience and morality, right? Song Wanshi smiled. I laughed too. She likes pharmaceuticals, and in the mountains and fields, there are no good medicinal materials to practice in the Duke's mansion, it is not your own home after all. But with me, she has countless medicinal herbs, and these are all the money I earn from doing business. After carefully analyzing the plot, I can feel the changes of the times, and under each change of the times, there will be new opportunities to make money, and I travel in it and enjoy it. Song Wanshi is good at pharmaceutical craftsmanship, and Xiao Xiao is very excited, often following her to see how she prepares medicine. Song Wanshi is also very patient, answering every question, and teaching Xiao Xiao a lot of knowledge by the way: how farmers farm, how hunters set traps, 7 how medicine farmers serve medicinal materials, spring flowers and autumn fruits, winter fur and summer kudzu, every object from birth to death, has its origin and destination. In her mouth, the world is extraordinarily vast. Xiao Xiao and I were both attracted. Therefore on that day, my father stood outside my palace for a long time, and I couldn't find it in time. The father looked at Song Wanshi with deep eyes, and there was an amazing desire in his eyes. Away from the shackles of concubine Du's love, he seemed to have discovered the beauty of a young woman. It's time to bring concubine Du back. Only she can restrain her father. 14 Duke to describe the tragic situation of concubine Du in the Shangshu mansion to his father one by one with red eyes. There are no new clothes to wear, and every day he holds the jade rui given by his father and quietly sheds tears, lazily dressing up in the mirror, and his haggard clothes gradually widen. The father's eyes were red. How can Du Zigua be so mean? That's his own sister. Xu Fa is Du Shangshu's own daughter, and her sister and daughter are. The father's pity for the weak overflowed again, and he repeatedly called for concubine Du to be brought back. Duke De was a little embarrassed. Who will the person who picks up the lady go? The lady has always been proud. If someone with no status goes to pick it up, and loses the lady's face, she can't go in person, it would be too grand. Let Ronghua go. My father appointed me. I left the palace with a will. Song Wanshi accompanied me, and Liu Yuzhang was responsible for opening the way. The two met each other's eyes and only nodded lightly to each other without any expression. I smiled with satisfaction. I did a good job. In the plot, the two have formed a life and death friendship at this time, but now they have never known each other. But I didn't expect the plot to have such a strong impact. On the way back from picking up concubine Du, we encountered an assassination. Liu Yuzhang obviously came to me to save me, but by mistake he grabbed Song Wanshi. Both of them rolled to the side in astonishment, and I rolled in embarrassment, able to dodge the fatal sword, and Liu Yuzhang rushed over again to protect me. But concubine Du was not so lucky. She was stabbed in the arm, and when she saw that she was going to seal her throat with a sword, I pulled her hard, and pulled her to Song Wanqi's side. I thought it clearly. At the critical moment, only the heroine can save her life. Song Wanqi protected me righteously. Lu Yuzhong successfully captured the assassin, removed the assassin's chin in front of concubine Du, and pulled out the poisoned teeth in his mouth, and then began the interrogation. Under the ruthless means, the assassin confessed. I don't know who it is, the master is called Mr. Zhushan. Concubine Du changed her face. Others don't know who Mr. Zhushan is, but I am familiar with the plot, but I know that my father, concubine Du, and Du Zigua each gave themselves a nickname when they were young. Du Zigua's nickname is Mr. Zhushan. Except for the three of them, others really don't know the name of Mr. Zhushan. Now this title comes from the mouth of an assassin, which is undoubtedly a fatal blow to concubine Du. This means that she was abandoned by the Du family. Her brother bet on his daughter. After all, Du Shifu is young, delicate, and pregnant. Du Yueru, who is old and frail, unable to conceive children, and cannot be a queen for the rest of her life, is useless to the Du family. Concubine Du was in a trance and shed tears. Song Wanqi and I rode on horseback, and asked her to be quiet in the carriage. When she got off the carriage, she was already calm, borrowed a comb palace made from me, dressed herself up, and then ignored the pain in her arm, carried her skirt like a girl, and rushed to her father's palace. Like a swallow throwing herself into the forest, she hugged her father eagerly and cried out of her longing. Immediately afterwards, he fainted. This fainting was found out by the imperial doctor, and the noble concubine was poisoned, and if she drank this poison for a few more days, she was afraid that she would die. The father was furious. The Du family is unlucky. Du Shifu was punished. And Song Wanqi and I were both rewarded by our father. You see, if a woman has no love, she will grow a brain, which is really a good thing. And if a man looks down on love, he will like a few more women, which is a bad thing. Song Wanqi is a little dangerous. I wanted to keep her by my side for a year, but now, I want to send her out of the palace as soon as possible while my father is setting his sights on concubine Du. 15 The night before I sent her out of the palace, I left my identity with her and drank on the roof under the night sky. She said, "Princess, you are a good person. I used to have a prejudice against you, always thinking that all noble people regard human life as nothing, but you are different, you have insight, can see the future. I have never seen a woman as bold and intelligent as you. I am sorry, I once thought you badly." I was full of joy and laughed. It's not your fault, it's the fault of this world. Many nobles in this world, as you said, are ruining human lives and disregarding the laws of the country. You are a doctor, and I am afraid you have seen all kinds of injustices, but one day, I will change all this. How to change? Her eyes sparkled. I took a sip of my wine. Let everyone become Song Wanqi. Everyone has become Song Wanqi. She muttered to herself. Song Wanqi has been lonely since she was a child, but fortunately she met the medical saint, and was picked up by him and raised as a daughter. She has integrity, wisdom, ability, and means. If one day women in the world are like Song Wanqi, then there is justice in this world. I pointed to the huge palace for her to see, and the places I pointed to were concubine Du's Fengwan Palace and Du Shuefu's Hengji Hall. Look there, what do you see? Song Wanqi thought for a moment and replied hesitantly, the two most beloved women in the world. I laughed. If they are the most favored, how can they be two? The world calls it a gentle town, but the swords and shadows there are no worse than any battle. What is the purpose of this? For the gold hairpin ring? Or is it silk and satin? There are only a dozen pearl hairpins on the head, and no matter how precious the silk is, it can only be worn on the body. Obviously they also have thoughts, opinions, fragrance and softness, and they are also two living people, but all they can do is compete for a man's favor, and a man's favor brings them nothing but foreign objects. They are fighting for it, even if they rise to a high position, they can only stay in this four-corner palace wall for the rest of their lives, and it is their fathers, brothers and children who enjoy the supreme honor for them, and they actually have nothing to do with them, but once the family is scattered, they are the first to be affected. Look there again. This time, I am referring to the direction of the cold palace. Do you know how many out-of-favor concubines have been locked up there? The Forbidden Palace has been built for more than 100 years, and more than 200 concubines have been imprisoned there, and less than 30% of them have really made mistakes, most of whom have been implicated by their families and imprisoned. What's even more terrifying is that even they themselves think so. Obviously it shouldn't be like this. Song Wanshi was silent. Your Highness. I never thought about these questions. I looked at the distant starry sky and said lightly. You should think about it, Song Wanshi, you should think about your future, whether to be the next medical saint or someone's wife. If you become someone's wife, then all your great achievements in the future will belong to your husband. When people mention you, they won't say how Song Wanshi is, but they will say that so-and-so's wife is extremely powerful. You will be blurred with your name, without voice, appearance and origin, and you can only mention that you are a certain song in the gaps of a certain medical book. If you are a little more powerful, and make a potion that can be passed down for generations, then, guess whose name will the potion be named? Is it you, Song Wanshi, or a certain man? I stood up and looked at her with a sympathetic expression. The corners of her eyes were slightly red, and she understood my words. Princess, is there no way out for the woman? Yes, there will definitely be in the future, but at present, Song Wanshi, you have to keep your eyes open, don't be moved by a little favor, don't be fooled by foreign objects. The value of life is never measured by those things that can be seen, but things that cannot be seen, time, energy, love and trust, these are real, and they will never disappear with time. 16 Song Wanshi left. In the huge palace, only me and Xiao Xiao are left to rely on each other. When he reached the age of studying, his father had not yet arranged a taifu for him. Concubine Du and Du Shuefu fought to the death. My father hadn't seen Du Shuefu for a long time, and I heard that Du Shuefu was so angry that he almost moved the fetal gas. When Concubine Du gained a firm foothold, she wanted to take Xiao Xiao back. Xiao Xiao hugged my arm and cried to the ground. I was very distressed and looked at Concubine Du. She turned pale, avoided my gaze, and said quietly, I will be good to him. That thing made me understand that children are the most important thing. I will be on him in the future. I will learn to be a good mother. He has his own mother. Xiao Ronghua, don't think that if you save me, I won't clean you up. I laughed pitifully. Concubine Du was angry. Presumptuous. Concubine Du, have you ever wondered why you can't give birth to? Shut up. Concubine Du too suddenly went crazy. The child is a thorn in her heart. I sighed. People say that the Queen Mother is a good person. Am I a wicked person? I accompanied your Majesty through life and death, planned for him, knelt down for him, and begged for his father, and endured all kinds of difficulties for him. He also poisoned the Emperor's grandfather with a dose of medicine. Concubine Du looked at me in horror, and lost her voice. She stepped back, shocked that I knew why there were so many. In fact, it is not difficult to guess that Song Wanshi told me something, and if I knew something from the plot, I could piece together the truth of the matter. Song Wanshi's master is a generation of medical saints, but the medical saints are raised with medicinal materials, not just out of thin air, and the palace has the most medicinal materials in the world. He came to Kyoto, entered the palace, and lived a carefree life. Until one day, he found out that his grandfather had been poisoned. He only changed his expression slightly, and he was targeted. In the end, he had to fake his death to escape. The Queen Mother should be aware of this matter, so when Concubine Du was about to enter the palace, she was so decisive to stop it. Because, if the Du family dares to poison the Emperor's grandfather, then one day, they will also dare to attack their father. As long as Concubine Du gives birth to a child, Du Zigua may also let his father die silently. Poor father, the Emperor can't see through it at all. He and Concubine Du may both be in love, they can live and die for love, and they cannot allow their pure love to be questioned and tarnished. But Du Zigua is not. He is a careerist, an extremely sober careerist, and his grandparents and grandchildren know what they want. Concubine Du turned around in a hurry and left. As long as she went to complain to her father, my death date would probably come. I said lightly, concubine do, other people's children are not familiar with it. In fact, the Queen Mother left a way for you, at that time. As long as you were patient, you could get the antidote from the Queen Mother and give birth to your own child. It's a pity. What did you say? She stopped abruptly and turned abruptly. I raised a pill and said calmly, the Queen Mother won't let you enter the palace. Is she really afraid of you? Or are you afraid of the Du family behind you? If your father and brother really thought about you at that time, they would have asked to leave the capital and become a rich man. According to the nature of the father, they would not be bad to them, but by the way, your father and brother chose high-ranking officials and generous salaries. Do you think the absolute medicine is a problem given to you by the Queen Mother? You are wrong, that is the problem that the Queen Mother gave to the Du family. Your father and brother gave up on you 20 years ago for their own future. Concubine Du collapsed and shouted, you are lying. Then do you know whose daughter the Queen Mother is? I looked at each other coldly. Concubine Du was dumbfounded. I stepped forward step by step, walked one step away from her, and said softly. The Queen Mother is the daughter of the Zhao family. Her family is a century-old family. After she met the emperor's grandfather, she fell in love with each other, but she was particularly restrained, abandoned her love, and volunteered to be a nun. But her father loved the Queen Mother, resigned decisively, left Beijing with his family, opened an academy, and taught and educated people. This is the practice of a family that truly loves its daughter, rather than knowing that the royal family is afraid of the dictatorship of foreign relatives, but wanting it, there is no such cheap thing in the world. This antidote is for you, but Xiao Xiao wants to stay with me. Shang Linan also asks you not to make things difficult. Those women have no grace in their lives, they are far inferior to you, please let them have a way to live. However, the noble concubine, the Du family already has Du Shuefu, they won't let you give birth to a child, you can do it yourself. I took Xiao Xiao's little hand and turned to leave. I could feel concubine Du's gaze behind me, which was particularly dazzling. She forced a few words out of the tips of her teeth. You're picking. Dial. Leave. Interim. I laughed. Oh yes. I am sowing discord. More than 10 years have passed. Naturally, the Queen Mother could not leave an antidote to concubine Du, but I said it was left by the Queen Mother, that is, it was left by the Queen Mother. People say that the Queen Mother is a good person, but they don't say that the Queen Mother is not a bad person. When she suspected that her son had killed her father, she should investigate and then depose the emperor, instead of just blaming concubine Du. But everyone has their own limitations, and that's what I see today, but at that time, no one could know what the real situation was. Perhaps that was the best decision the Queen Mother could make under the current situation at that time. After all, power was never in the hands of women. But no matter what, the success or failure of right and wrong is always left to future generations to comment on. 17 Concubine Du had to understand the medicine, and was much more tolerant of me. I can go in and out of the palace freely. I checked Liu Yuzhang's schedule and knew his schedule, so I often asked him to take me out to play. As a result, all kinds of accidents will always happen wherever the male protagonist passes. We met the Marquis who was plotted. Liu Yuzhang saved people, and I was thanked. Thank you, Princess, for saving me, I am grateful. I also asked the princess to take this jade pendant if necessary, the princess can come to me. I naturally thanked him, and calmly accepted the other party's token. I took out the antidote pill made by Song Wanshi and stuffed it into the little general's mouth. The other party opened his eyes, and the first person to see it was me, smiling gratefully at me. Very good, the life-saving grace of the affectionate second male lead, he shouldn't be ungrateful, right? Later, he also met a foreign prince, who was supposed to be a brother with Liu Yuzhang. But when I discovered his identity, I immediately asked Liu Yuzhang to take him down, and lock him up in Dali Temple. He also said that his father asked people to hold the portrait of the prince and exchange countless money and benefits from his country, which became the most commendable sentence among the few achievements of his father during his reign. When the prince was released, he stared at Liu Yuzhang hatefully, wishing he could kill him quickly. I hid in the crowd and quietly pretended to be dead. Well, I got it, the hatred fell on Liu Yuzhang, and there was nothing better than this. Lu Yuzhong felt something was wrong. Because he has more and more injuries on his body, and he gets little gratitude, but there is a lot of revenge. He looked at me strangely and said quietly, I always feel that His Highness is hiding something from me. What he actually wants to say is that it's always unlucky to go out with me, right? Alas. He didn't know he was the male protagonist yet, and these were actually his opportunities. Saving the important minister, being kind to the general, befriending the prince of a different prince, and the fiancé of a medical disciple are all his foundations in the plot. But now it's gone. Who is to blame? I can only blame this world. After all, being in the same place with the high-ranking person, no matter how much the low-ranking person does, it is all the credit of the high-ranking person. All I did was stand by his side, nothing more. Relying on these kindnesses, I successfully invited the world-famous Mr. He as Taifu for Xiao Xiao. The father was overjoyed when he heard this. After all, this was a wise man he couldn't invite before. He valued Xiao Xiao even more. Du Shuefu was anxious, she lost her temper in the palace, beat and scolded several palace maids, and even Huang was beaten. On the 15th day of July it rained. Huang held an umbrella, and stood at the corner door in a daze. She didn't even know that I was standing behind her. I opened the corner door and stood on the palace road, separated by a wall. My father fell on this end, and Huaji fell on the other. Blood flowed from the back of his father's head, and blood flowed from Huaji's forehead. They are all red. This red color has not faded after more than 10 years. Because we all remember. After the silence, we left separately, and the moment we passed by, Huang whispered, Du Shuefu did it. Do you hurt? I asked. Huang was stunned and smiled, it doesn't hurt, the slave is so happy. Take care. 3 days later, concubine Du's medicinal diet found the absolute medicine again, and she cried and questioned her father. Your Majesty, why doesn't my brother let me go? Back then, for the Du family, I voluntarily drank the absolute medicine, but now I finally have a turnaround, and he actually wants to harm me again for the sake of his daughter. Do I only have one way out? The father was very distressed, banned Du Shuefu's feet, and punished several Du family collateral branches through a trivial matter. Du Zigua hurriedly entered the palace to apologize. After he pleaded guilty, he met concubine Du and said gloomily, without the support of the Du family, you are nothing. Do you think you will have a good life if you bring down the Du family? This is officially torn face. Concubine Du looked at her extremely strange brother in front of her, and said expressionlessly, you are the first year of junior high school, I am the 15th, I am not so broad-minded, I can repay grievances with virtue. Du Zigua brushed off his sleeves and left. However, as soon as he left the palace, he was caught red-handed by Lu Yuzhong. He cursed, yellow-mouthed child, I have the merit of following the dragon, do you dare to catch me? When I tell your Majesty, I will kill the kid to relieve my hatred. Lu Yuzhong read the imperial decree expressionlessly. The imperial decree is clear. Du Zigua's corruption caused the imperial ancestral hall built in Suiyang to collapse, and a huge tablet was revealed on the collapsed place, which read, the disaster of wood and earth is a disaster of thousands of miles, and the blood of the people is not accepted by heaven. Suiyang is the place where the ancestors of the Xiao family started, so there are 2 royal ancestral halls, one in the capital and the other in Suiyang. Du Zigua was ordered to build the imperial ancestral hall, but the ancestral hall collapsed, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it shook the imperial dynasty. There is another thing that the imperial decree said, that is, the Lianhe River has burst again. Last time, the breach of the Lianhe River was Du Zigua's corruption, and the father who crossed over wanted to punish Du Zigua severely, and Du Guifei broke the net, and pushed down his father, allowing Du Zigua to escape. That time, my father gently revealed it and allocated money for Du Zigua to rebuild the embankment. But corrupt officials are corrupt officials, and it seems that they cannot live without taking the money they have in hand. So, after 5 years, the Lian River burst its banks again. And this time, a large stone gushed out of the river that burst its embankment, which read, Du is not dead, and the Lotus River is not peaceful. 2 things happened at the same time, and even God couldn't help Du Zigua. The Du family, which was like cooking oil, fell. The whole clan raided the house, the beheading of the 9 clans, and the exile of the exile. When concubine Du heard the news, she was devastated. "I didn't want this, I didn't think so, Dad. Mother. Brother." She rushed out of the palace, but was stopped by the guards. She rushed to the imperial study again, knelt outside the door and cried, "Your Majesty, didn't you say that you were just punishing your brother? Why do you want to destroy my whole clan, why?" Her cry was particularly tragic. The father was very embarrassed in the study, because there were dozens of ministers kneeling in the imperial study. Concubine Du blamed her father wrongly. The father did not want to kill Du Zigua. But these dozens of ministers united with the royal clan to come up with the patriarchal law to suppress the father. If the father insists on going his own way, dozens of ministers will not die today, or a new monarch will be established. That's the imperial ancestral hall. If it is not an imperial ancestral hall, Du Zigua can escape. The ministers were determined to be determined, for fear that their father's ears would be soft, and they were bewitched by concubine Du, so they knelt down in the imperial study for a day, until the execution of the Du family was over and everyone came out of the imperial study. Concubine Du broke free from the guards and rushed into the imperial study, and saw her father lying on the dragon chair, panicked like a bereaved dog. "Zigua. It's gone." The father wept bitterly. Concubine Du was so disappointed that she slapped her father hard. "Cry, you only know how to cry, you couldn't get the queen mother, you couldn't get the minister, and now you can't protect my family, you look like an emperor, why do I like you, why?" No one knows the answer. When you love it very much, and when you hate it even more. The two went from lover to resentful couple in just a few years. At this moment, Duke de stumbled in. "Your Majesty, the snow concubine has had a miscarriage." "What?" The father was startled and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Concubine Du was startled, and a touch of blood red flowed out from under her. 18 overnight. Concubine Du had a miscarriage. Du Shifu had a miscarriage. My father was furious and fell on the bed. The imperial doctor came one stubble after another, but the father never got better. I don't know if he was grieving Du Guifei's child or Du Shuefu's child. Probably both. But it doesn't matter. Concubine Du and Du Shuefu didn't care about him anymore. The fold that persuaded his father to establish a crown prince was packed into a few baskets. The father trembled his lips. "These sycophants will not see my good, and I will be angry with them sooner or later." The father was still undecided to make Xiao Xiao the crown prince, but at this time Xiao Xiao was also sick. Because someone told him that Li Siren was dead. Xianglin Monastery is high and cold on the top of Longshan, where it is surrounded by fog all year round, and it is extremely inconvenient to enter and exit. The nuns needed to chop firewood, carry water, light fires, and cook by themselves. When Li Siren was chopping wood, he accidentally fell into the hunter's trap, and was caught in his foot, and by the time he was discovered, his body was already cold. When Xiao Xiao heard the news, he cried heartbroken and fell ill in the blink of an eye. The disease came quickly, and soon, people developed rashes all over their bodies, and had a high fever that did not subside. The father finally found out in conscience and took a look. The doctor said it was an emergency, and would be contagious. He walked away again with an unlucky face. Xiao Xiao endured for 7 days, and closed his eyes. His small body became cold, and the imperial physician suggested that he be sent out of the palace to be buried quickly, so as not to spread the epidemic in the palace. That night, he was put in a small coffin and carried out. The palace lost 3 children in a row. My father was heartbroken and said, "Is this God punishing me? Is it because I did something wrong back then?" He vomited blood again and couldn't afford to get sick. In the huge palace, I was the only healthy master left. The ministers panicked. Began to write to the father to find a few children from the side branch to raise in the palace, and to choose one to be the prince in the future. At this time, the Queen Mother returned to the palace. She returned with several old ministers who had been demoted and dismissed, and as soon as those old ministers returned, they visited officials and lobbied celebrities. On the day of the last court, the Queen Mother sat on the phoenix seat next to the dragon chair, and I stood aside. The ministers felt bad, but they still wrote to ask about the establishment of the prince as usual. The dismissed ministers were silent. The Queen Mother was also silent. And those ministers argued endlessly, arguing over whether to choose the son of the king of Qi or the son of the king of Zhao. The huge golden one hall is like a vegetable market. I silently remembered the words of the crowd and judged which side their buttocks were sitting on. After a long time, the Queen Mother stood up and shouted coldly, "Are you really Your Majesty who has no successor? 5 years ago, His Majesty personally said that his heirs, whether male or female, can occupy the position of prince or princess. Have you forgotten?" Everyone was stunned, their eyes on me deeply. Today, I am the only heir left in the face of my father. I stood up and saluted everyone. "My lords, Rongwa salutes you here and begs you to help me." Can. You are a woman." I laughed. "What about women?" They were angry. "A woman is an emperor, unheard of, the hen is in the morning, chaos in the court, and it must be the anger of heaven and the resentment of the people. How can a woman continue to have children, and the child born is a person with a different surname? Will the Xiao family die at the hands of a woman? We only follow Your Majesty's will, and if there is no Your Majesty's will, we will act according to the rules of our ancestors." I refute one by one. In ancient times, women were respected, and Jiang Yuan followed in the footsteps of giants and gave birth to the ancestors of the Zhou dynasty, and Zhou took Ji as the surname, which is the best evidence. The ancestor of Qin, the female cultivator, ate the egg of the black bird and gave birth to the great cause, which was the Ying clan, and the middle of the wording was also a female character. Jiang, Yao, and Yen, Lu, and Lao are all female surnames. You have never been an emperor with a woman, so why can't you see that you were born in a woman's womb? Furthermore, only children born to women can ensure pure blood. Can men really guarantee it? Just like Lord Zhao, I heard that the Qin family has no resemblance to your appearance, so you may confirm that the child is your son. Master Zhao, who was the most fiercely opposed, said coldly, "The minister has recognized his relatives with his blood," and the child and the minister's blood quickly melted without any stagnation. Ha 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 ha, blood recognition. Come on, bring a bowl of water. Soon, a eunuch brought water. Stimulated by my words, Master Zhao and the eunuch each dripped a drop of blood, and the 2 drops of blood quickly melted. The eunuch was frightened and looked at Master Zhao in astonishment. "Lord Zhao, we are about the same age, you can't be my father." I can't be your father anymore. I entered the palace at the age of 11. Master Zhao blushed. "What nonsense, there is something wrong with this bowl of water." I sneered, "There is indeed a problem with this water. As long as this palace is willing, the blood of any 2 people in the world can be fused, and in the same way, even if it is a biological father and son, this palace has a way to make the blood of the 2 never blend." Lord Zhao, do you still think that a man can guarantee pure blood? Hey! Master Zhao waved his sleeves and was embarrassed. I smiled and said, "As a man who wants to tell whether the child was born by himself, there is no way, but what is born in a woman's belly must be his own child." Master Zhao still goes back to check who the child is. If you can't find out, this palace can help you. Master Zhao couldn't stay any longer, so he threw his sleeves and left angrily. And I looked at everyone again, my eyes swept over one by one, my smile was meaningful, and many people couldn't help but bow their heads in sweat. One of them stepped forward. "The princess doesn't have to embarrass me. As long as there is His Majesty's will, the ministers will never say a word again." Yes, I agree. I agree with you. For a while, the hall was filled with voices of support. They knew how much my father hated me in the past 5 years, how much he didn't look at me and Xiao Xiao, and it was impossible to pass the throne to me. But they made a mistake. They didn't know that the Queen Mother, and I were waiting for this moment. The Queen Mother slammed the case, took out a scroll from her sleeve domineeringly, and shouted loudly, "Little virtue, declare the decree." Duke de walked out quickly, opened the imperial decree quickly, and read loudly, Feng Tianqingyun Emperor's Edict. My eldest daughter Ronghua has a noble character, and is deeply imitated by me, and she will be able to inherit the throne and succeed me to the throne, that is, the Emperor's throne. The imperial decree was read. There was chaos in the hall. Impossible, this is absolutely impossible, this imperial decree is false. Duke de smiled and took down the imperial decree, and circulated it one by one. Everyone was stunned. Because the imperial decree is true. There is a god 3 feet above his head, and the imperial decree is hidden on the beam of the Buddhist hall. I spent 5 years there. Familiar with every brick and tile, every grass and one tree there. There was a raccoon slave who climbed into the beam of the Buddhist hall, and in the boring years, I lured it down with food, and it jumped and snatched the food, but knocked the imperial decree down as if to repay the favor. My small ambition grew quickly after reading this imperial edict. It turned out that my father thought I could be the empress. It turns out that he loves me so much and recognizes me so much. It turned out that he was also afraid that he would suddenly cross over, and suddenly one day he would likely cross back, so he made various arrangements. He's so good. Then I can't let him down. I was planning little by little, thinking about how to become a big heroine, and how to find another way out for women in the world. After thinking about it, I found that only by ascending to a high position, as my father said, could I do something in this closed era. And today, here I am. After 5 years of travel, it has finally arrived today. After the imperial decree was read, everyone looked at each other. Some are against it, some are silent. Some people also spoke out. We respectfully follow your Majesty's will. I obey your orders. More and more people agreed. Finally, the last person standing knelt down. Under the watchful eyes of the Queen Mother, I sat on the dragon chair. The Queen Mother laughed, the Duke of De laughed, and the old ministers who had been deposed laughed. But I can't laugh. It seemed like I had won, but I didn't. They succumbed to an imperial decree left by their father 5 years ago, an affirmation and respect for patriarchy, not because of me. But as long as I am in power for one day, I will work towards this goal without stopping. 19 On the day of my enthronement, I took the throne step by step, wearing a crown and a black robe. The ministers around him bowed, and the sounds of praise were endless. After worshipping my ancestors and finishing the ceremony, I walked slowly to the harem. Concubine Du was noisy to see me, and I took Huang to go there happily. As soon as she saw me, she scolded the traitors and thieves. He is your father. So what? I couldn't help but laugh. The concubine should be happy. I don't want to ruin the reputation of my former father, otherwise, my father's reputation should be bad now. You know that you are still like this to your father, you are not as good as a beast. Concubine, it is better to be benevolent than to raise a benevolence, but it is not as good as a beast if you don't care about it. She was indignant. Du Shuefu lifted her away, and asked Huang behind me for help. Huang, I know you are capable, please, for the sake of master and servant, say a few kind words to your Majesty, and let me go. She kowtowed. But she was kicked away by Huang, just like she had kicked over countless palace maids. She was shocked, her face distorted, and she quickly restrained herself, becoming flattering. Huang looked at concubine Du steadily and said coldly, at the corner gate, the lady pushed down His Majesty and killed a little palace maid. Can you remember the name of the little palace maid? Concubine Du was obviously not impressed. She said coldly, it's just a cheap maid, and she will die if she dies. Huang laughed angrily. But noble lady, the Du family is the one who fueled the situation behind us lowly maids, and the whole family was exterminated. Yes. You? Concubine Du came back to her senses. Her eyes gradually changed from shock to disbelief, and then she became eager to kill Huang. She must have figured it out. Figure out why Du Shifu rolled with his father inexplicably. Why was he sent out of the palace, and he didn't see his father come to pick him up for a long time? Why did my father obviously like her, but he would still go to Du Shifu's bed again? Even if you push it forward, the assassination at the banquet may be tricky. Pushing back from the inexplicable assassination of the Du family when she returned to the palace, the guards who were severely tortured in front of her, and the frame-up of Du Shifu and her pregnancy. A ring of conspiracies and tricks made the two inseparable lovers estranged and suspicious. In the end, they used each other and lost the whole game. She pounced on her angrily. It's you, why do you want to harm me? Why? I just want my Xiaolang back. Is it wrong? Is there anything wrong? Several grandmothers held down the crazy concubine Du, and she stared at us with a crazy face. I said lightly, look, this is the difference between us, you only see the father, I see not only the father but also the people. Whether you like your father or the convenience brought to you by your father's power, you can think about it for a lifetime. I turned and left. Huang said coldly, Mother, you have a lifetime to remember the name of my sister, a little person, her name is Huaji. The flower branches full of fragrant flowers. She followed in my footsteps and walked into the melting sunshine together. The sound of concubine Du gritting her teeth came from behind her. I won't do what you want, the daughter of the Du family would rather die than live. No, Aunt, I want to live, please let me go, please. Ah. Concubine Du twisted her neck. Du Shifu fell softly to the ground, dying with her eyes closed. After a while, a corpse lay in the gorgeous Fengwan palace, and since then, a new cold palace has been born. When the father heard the news, he snorted a few times, his eyes widened, he didn't catch his breath and fainted. Countless imperial doctors haunted his palace, pouring bowls of soup and medicine, and his father was always half dead. I am guarding outside the palace. Suddenly, a colorful cloud enveloped the sky. I felt something, and hurriedly stayed by my father's side, and saw the haggard man slowly open his eyes. His eyes were confused for a moment, and then he looked at me gently. So it is, my glory. You've grown so big, it's great, it's good, you're finally a big woman. Lord. His voice fell on the bed with his hands. I screamed and burst into tears in an instant. The imperial doctor is rescuing. The queen mother hurried over but only saw a cold corpse. The tears she had held back for many years surged down like a bursting embankment. The ministers who rushed over looked at each other, not understanding why the queen mother and I, who had been extremely indifferent before, were now so grief-stricken. Only those courtiers who had been dismissed seemed to understand something, and their eyes were red together. The vicissitudes of the world are full of sadness. The person who can talk about the desolation together will never be there after all. 20 in the first year of my father's birthday, I went out of the palace to pay my respects. When they arrived at the place, a mother and daughter were waiting outside the cemetery holding hands. The former Li Siren, now Li Tinglan, held her son's hand and waved to me from afar. Xiao Xiao, who changed his name to Li Xiao, rushed over, threw himself into my arms, and shouted sweetly, Sister, sister. I hugged him and looked at Mr. He not far behind him. Mr. He's eyes were particularly gentle when he looked at Li Tinglan. Li Tinglan blushed slightly and dodged. Li Xiao whispered in my ear, I want Mr. He to be my father, but my mother is unwilling, saying that she will keep her father for 3 years, but I can't figure out what good is there for my father. This little poor boy has never enjoyed the love of the father of the heavenly traverser, so he doesn't know how good he is. But I remember it all, and I will remember it for the rest of my life. I laughed. Then you have to study hard. If you don't study hard, your mother will think that your husband is incompetent. Southwest she will drive him away. Li Xiao nodded like pounding garlic. I breathed a sigh of relief, and I was very grateful to Song Wanshi in my heart. She is worthy of being a born healer. The fake death medicine developed by her master back then hurt herself in order to escape smoothly. But what she developed did not have the slightest sequelae, and Li Xiao now has nothing bad. The worship is complete. Say goodbye to each other. Each has taken a different path. In the capital ahead, the huge rivers and mountains are waiting for me to govern, and I ride my horse and whip there, not to seek merit in the future, but only to hope that the people living under my rule can live a good life at the moment. Very good. 21. In the third year of Kun Yuan, the empress set up female officials in the palace, and female officials served in the palace for 3 years, and could be delegated to the local government as officials based on merit. This system was strongly opposed at first. However, many years later, those female officials made political achievements based on their abilities, and were promoted to the capital step by step, and many capable ministers and cadres were praised by future generations. Because women can be officials and revitalize the family business, more and more women are sent to study. In the 5th year of Kun Yuan, Songji Pharmaceutical developed a medicine that could cure wind and cold, saving countless lives, and Song Wanshi, the head of the Songji family, was praised as a living bodhisattva, and the imperial court rewarded her, making her the Marquis of Rini and the first female marquis of the imperial dynasty. This move greatly improved the status of women, and the empress issued a special decree that all capable people in the people, regardless of gender, could be rewarded by the imperial court once recognized. In the 6th year of Kun Yuan, the empress built criminal law steels in various places, engraved the law on the steel, and ordered people to publicize the law, and the people knew the law, so as to refute the powerful. In the 9th year of Kun Yuan. Later people called this Kun Yuan prosperous age. End of full text.